911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Hold on one second. Oh. Sorry, I forgot to turn my lights on. How are you guys? Good to see everybody. I absolutely love listening to Tech Death play. I could listen to him like forever. I mean, I just can't say enough. He's done a couple of different intros for me over the last couple of years, and I can't, like I said, I just can't say enough about him. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Tech Death Hippie, please make sure that you go check out his channel and support his music, because it's pretty amazing. So how is everyone? Hey, Frank Meister, how are you, my friend? So good to see you. Hey, Cool Gamer. Hey, Purdue. How are you, my dear? I hope you're well. I hope your hubby's well. Sorry, I've been kind of distant and not interacting much. I've been busy in my personal world. Hey, 63 Clocks. How are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Hey, Tech Death. So glad you're here, my dear. I love that song. Hey, Jill. How are you? Good to see you. So, what I'm going to do is tonight is it's going to be kind of a little bit informal, but I've got some stuff that I want to get out there to everybody about ritual and signatures serial sexual homicide. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about ritualistic killings, and then we're going to talk, obviously, about the evidence in this case. And I think that there's plenty to talk about that should get us through our allotted time. But I was trying to think about things that I wanted to say, because I've been watching some lives and some live streams and stuff, and there's a lot of different opinions out there, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm not here to try and sway people one way or the other, but I am here to point out the facts of the case and to let everybody know what the true facts are, and the rest is supposition or just, relying on off the wall kind of kind of explanations, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I've heard people say, I think Gray Hughes said it on one of his lives, something about, sure, is it possible that somebody came down from Mars and murdered the girls? I mean, I hate to go that far, but I mean, we have a lot of differing opinions out there about what's going on in this case. And I still get the ire comes up in me, and the hair on the back of my neck kind of raises when people start talking about conspiracy theories and the fact that they feel that Richard Allen has been used as a patsy in this case. And that narrative angers me, because I think that those individuals are absolutely refusing to look at the evidence, and to look at the evidence objectively as to what would have led investigators to the conclusion that Richard Allen committed these murders. So we're going to get into it. And like I said, there's a lot to talk about. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, I hope, first of all, that everybody is doing well out there, and that if you are watching me on the replay, I know I'm getting a lot of replay traffic. And if you guys are, welcome, and thank you so much for being here and for supporting my channel. I appreciate it very much. I know that for the last 6 months or so, I've been kind of busy, off and away from my channel, but I'm working on myself and healing myself, both emotionally as well as physically. And that has been a journey, and it has taken up a lot of my time. So, but I'm feeling exceptionally well for this time of the year. I want to say that the holidays are always difficult for me. My son was diagnosed with cancer on Christmas Day. So Christmas used to be, and was always before that, my second favorite holiday. I absolutely adored it, besides my birthday. And it has, I always want to make sure that when I am live, that I'm giving you guys 110%. I don't want to just come on and go live and not really have anything of substance to talk to you about. And Frank Meister and I have had these conversations together about that very topic. And so you can usually know that if I'm gonna go live, I've got something to say. So a lot of people in my real life tell me that, Kristen is never short on words. But hey, it's what I do. I just finished a huge diamond painting. Um, it's the largest one that I've done, and I've already got it up and it's on the wall. I was sitting here thinking, I don't think I have a picture on my computer yet of it that I can show you. Maybe I do. Hold on one second. Let me see. Let me check. I might. Um, I might. Oh, I think it'll be over here. So let me go see if I can find it. Where are you? See all photos. Yeah, it's not going to be there because it wasn't posted that way. Posts. Because I kind of want you to see it. I'm really proud of it. It took a month to complete. I did it for an event on Facebook, and I love the artist, and I just really, I love his work. Here it is. So hang on a second. I'm going to save the image. And go in and see if I can show it to you guys so you can see it. Thank you, 63 Clocks. I appreciate that. And Catherine Squires, thank you so much. I appreciate that quality is always important. Hey, Danger Dave, how are you? Good to see you. Let me see if I can get this up. All right, that's not what I wanted. You would think that I would have this down by now. And sometimes I do. Get started. Let's see. Imports. Library. These are my older ones. I think I'll find it here. Sorry, guys. Just bear with me for just a minute, okay? Well, heck, guys. I saved it, but it's not showing up quickly for me. I'm not sure why. Okay. Where are you? Oh, let's try this. Photos or photos. Found it. I think. Well, darn it. Anyway. Save image as 4014. There it is. Found it. Okay. Sorry, guys. Did not mean to take so long. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see this. So this is it. It's called, hold on a sec. I was trying to, it's called Home is Where the Magic Is. It's by Randall Spangler. And he is an artist whose art is done in watercolor and painting. And then he takes, he has two companies he works with, one that renders his artwork into counted cross stitch, and one who renders it into diamond painting. And I have quite a few of his diamond paintings to do. But this is the largest diamond painting I've done to date. And I absolutely love it. And it is up on my wall now in my living room for the holiday season, for the winter. I'll leave it up for the winter. But yeah, so you guys can see that I spend a lot of my time when I'm not doing other things, I diamond paint. I found out earlier this year that diamond painting really helps my anxiety. And I was having a lot of problems with that in the summer. And so I got hot and heavy into diamond painting, and I'm currently working on some diamond paintings for Christmas presents. Um yeah, it's a really beautiful piece, and like I said, I framed it myself. And yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. But thanks, guys. I know people have been asking me. I've had people email me and ask me what it was that I was doing and what I was working on. And I'll try to put some things together so you guys can see some of the other stuff that I've done. I think I've done about 25 diamond paintings since April. Um, so yeah, it's something that I'm very much involved in. All right, guys. So we're going to talk about this ritualistic killing and signatures in serial sexual homicide. And I thought that this was an important topic because of the fact that, hang on a second, I got to turn this is too noisy. There we go. Because the defense has, hey, Gail Hurd, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, Frank Meister. Hi, Sharon. So good to see you. Because the defense in Richard Allen's case brought up the whole idea of this being a ritual killing by a cult or a group of Odin followers. And I thought that we should take a look at some of the information that's out there about ritualistic killings and signatures and so forth. One of the first things that I want to tell you is when I started researching this topic, one of the things that I found is that, hey, Frank, is that ritualistic murder is very, very uncommon, to the tune of 1% or less. So that is the first thing to throw out there. Ritual and signature are fantasy driven, repetitive crime scene behaviors that have been found to occur in serial sexual homicide. Notwithstanding numerous anecdotal case reports, ritual and signature have rarely been studied empirically. And in a national sample of 38 offenders and their 162 victims, this study examined behavioral and thematic consistency, as well as the evolution and uniqueness of these crime scene actions. The notion that serial sexual murderers engage in the same rituals and leave unique signatures at every scene was not supported by their data. In fact, the results suggested that the crime scene conduct of this group of offenders is fairly complex and it's varied. Implications of these findings for forensic assessments and criminal investigations are discussed. Since the early case studies of sexual murder by von Krafft-Ebing, offenders have been reported to engage in various crime scene behaviors that are unnecessary in the commission of the homicide itself. That's what makes these signatures or rituals. For example, several of the individuals that von Krafft-Ebing cited not only killed their victims, but filled their mouths with dirt, pulled their hairpins out, pressed their hands together, subjected them to humiliation and torture, often took something from them that was of little value. Authors of other early publications found similar behavior in sexual murders. Many investigators concluded that these seemingly unnecessary activities, for example, unnecessary for successfully accomplishing the crime itself, served as a psychological purpose. The offender needed to engage in such actions to feel sexually gratified. Killing the victim was not sufficient. Such crime scene behaviors, which more often than not are repetitive, have been found to be an outgrowth of the perpetrator's deviant sexual fantasies, wherein the murder and the repetitive acts are part of the offender's sexual arousal pattern. In empirical studies, some have investigated the connection between offenders' deviant sexual fantasies and how their crimes were carried out. For instance, McCullough found that 81% of men identified in a British forensic hospital who had committed a sadistic sex crime admitted that their masturbatory fantasies were related to their deviant crime scene behavior. Similarly, Burgess found that 80% of sexual murderers identified by the FBI in various U.S. prisons between 1979 and 1983 reported that masturbatory fantasies directly connected to how their offenses were enacted. A relationship between 25 using some of the 1979 to 1983 FBI sample fantasies and crime scene actions has been found by Prentke in a slightly higher number, 86%, of serial sexual killers. The question has never been whether these seemingly unnecessary repetitive crime scene actions occur, since they have been described in various case reports for well over a century. Instead, the questions are how consistently they occur across crimes, how unique they are, and how they might serve as an investigative aid. In the early 1980s, the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit began studying the crime scene behavior of sexual murderers, with particular emphasis on serial sexual murderers, to help in the construction of profiles of unidentified offenders. They differentiated an offender's modus operandi, his conscious technique of committing a crime, from the repetitive behavior, the unnecessary behavior for the successful completion of the crime, and often similar among crimes, appearing to be ritualistic, that was fantasy-driven. Because the repetitive ritualistic acts stem from the offender's fantasies, which are somewhat distinctive for each individual, it has been suggested that fantasy-driven rituals are also unique, perhaps as unique as an individual's signature. Accordingly, this type of signature behavior had been termed the perpetrator's calling card and can be used to connect or link a series of crimes to the same individual. Douglas and Munn explained that the modus operandi, or MO, is a learned behavior that evolves as an offender gains experience and confidence by committing more crimes, while the signature, a term that unfortunately has been often used synonymously with ritual, aspect stays the same, whether it is the first offense or one committed 10 years later. The ritual may evolve, but the theme remains constant. And for example, Hazelwood and Warren found that the signature ritualistic aspect of the crime does not change dramatically. It is designed to meet the offender's motivationally driven fantasy and therefore remains psychosexually arousing to him over time. In fact, ritualistic behavior serves such strong emotional needs of the offender that it may increase his chances of being apprehended. He may, for example, leave additional evidence behind, spend unnecessary time at the crime scene, or return to the scene to carry out additional acts with the body. Hazelwood and Warren drew a distinction between ritual repetitive acts at the crime scene and signature, a unique combination of behaviors that emerges across two or more offenses. They were quite deliberate in their discussion of ritual. For instance, they argued that the ritual may not occur in every crime in a series because of several factors, such as time availability, the offender's mood, and various external circumstances that could dilute, modify, or interrupt the commission of a crime. Moreover, some features of the crime may serve as part of the ritual and not be recognized as such, or may be mistakenly taken to be part of the MO, while in other cases, some element of the crime. may function as both MO and ritual. Adding to the complexity of recognizing ritualistic behavior are instances where one or more ritualistic aspects of the crime remain known only to the offender and may be recognized only after the subject is apprehended and examined and his records and belongings analyzed. In addition, these authors found that serial sexual offenders who act impulsively with little planning often do not engage in ritualistic or signature behavior because of the undifferentiated nature of their fantasy lives. In contrast, offenders who plan their crimes and who have detailed and elaborate fantasy lives engage in distinct ritualistic or signature acts. Most of our knowledge of ritualistic and signature behavior has been gained from clinical practice experience through the evaluation of offenders and from criminal investigations. The incidence of ritualistic behavior in some cases of serial sexual homicide has been found to be as high as 95%. But the consistency with which offenders exhibit this behavior in a series of victims is unclear. Recently, Bateman and Solfati studied behavioral consistency in a sample obtained from the Homicide Investigation and Tracking System in Seattle of 90 offenders, each of whom had committed at least 5 homicides. These researchers found a relatively high level of behavioral consistency in what seemed to be ritualistic acts. A 72.8% incidence in those offenders who disfigure, 83.7% in those who engage in ante-mortem sex, 85.6% in those who torture, 85% in those who have the victim perform oral sex, and 88.3% in those who engage in vaginal sex. These results lend some empirical support to the notion that there is consistency in repetitive ritualistic behavior. However, the study did not use a homogeneous sample of serial sexual murders and did not address the question of whether these ritualistic acts are unique and can be legitimately considered to be an offender's signature. This study was an empirical examination of ritualistic and signature behavior in serial sexual homicide offenders in which 6 questions were posed. Do perpetrators of serial sexual homicide engage in ritualistic behavior? Do these offenders engage in ritualistic behavior consistently with every victim? Is the theme of the ritual consistent across victims? Is there evolution or elaboration of the ritual across victims? And is the ritual not only consistent but also unique so that it can be legitimately referred to as signature? Do offenders experiment at a crime scene and do something unique with one or more than one victim in a series? To answer all of these questions, they studied a non-random national sample with its inherent limitations of 38 sexually motivated serial homicide offenders and their 162 victims. The cases were supplied by the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. All cases were closed and fully adjudicated and were contributed by law enforcement agencies around the country for research purposes. Although various units of the FBI have access to additional cases, these were the only ones available at the Behavioral Science Unit where their study was conducted. There were no criteria for inclusion of the cases except for availability and no reason to believe that they are materially different from any other non-random sample, although this possibility can never be eliminated. Our sample consisted of U.S. offenders who committed homicides primarily during the 1990s, and the sample was not used in any other FBI-sponsored study identifying information regarding offenders, victims, and police agencies was removed because this research involved only the collection of data from existing documents. The institutional review boards of both the FBI and the John Jay College of Criminal Justice exempted the project after an initial assessment with no institutional review board approval required. The offenders were sexual homicide was operationally defined by using the criteria of wrestler, evidence of victim's attack or lack of attire, evidence of victim's attire or lack of attire, exposure of the victim's sexual parts, sexual positioning of victim's body, object insertion, sexual penetration, or evidence of substitute sexual activity, interest, or sadistic fantasy. Cases that were questionable with respect to the sexual motivation of the homicides were eliminated. All offenders had committed at least 2 and in as many as 11 sexually motivated murders and were classified as such by a review of the entire case in which total independent agreement by the authors was mandatory. The mean number of murders per offender was 4.2. All of the 38 offenders in the sample were male. 25 or 65.8% were Caucasian. 12 or 31.6 were African American, and 2.6 was Asian. The mean age of the offender was 34.7 years of age at the time of their arrest. There was no documented indication of psychopathology in 19 or 50% of the offenders in the sample, and in the other half, several disorders were noted: substance abuse, antisocial personality disorder, a psychotic condition, unspecified psychotic disorder, and schizophrenia, a history of conduct disorder, anxiety disorder, cyclothymic disorder, schizoid personality disorder, and mild mental retardation. Information regarding criminal history, which almost always underestimate the number of offenses committed, was available for 30 of the total sample. 8 offenders had no documented criminal background before the homicides. The 30 offenders who had committed prior crimes were responsible for 180 separate criminal incidents, which involved a total of 254 offenses that were not connected to the homicide series. That was a mean of 6 incidents per offender. Most of the non-homicidal offenses were of a violent nature, including attempted murder, various types of assault, sexual assault, burglary, and a variety of other crimes such as theft and weapons and drug offenses. There were 162 homicide victims in this study, the majority of whom were female, 77.2% or 125. 22.8% or 37 were male. Most victims, 70.1% or 115, were Caucasian or African American, 26.5% or 43. 2% were classified as other, 3 Hispanic and 1 Korean. The mean age of the adult victim was 26.1 years of age. 15 victims were younger than 14 years of age and were not used in calculating the mean age of victims to prevent skewing the results. Most of the homicides, 58% in our sample, were committed by Caucasian offenders against Caucasian victims, and the great majority, 83% of offenders, targeted victims of the same race. Only 13.2% offenders exclusively targeted victims of a different race. The specific racial composition of offender and victim was as follows. The 25 Caucasian offenders killed 94 Caucasians, 4 African Americans, and 4 other. The 12 African American offenders killed 39 African Americans and 18 Caucasians, and the Asian offender killed 3 Caucasians. So what is the operational definition of a ritual and signature? I thought this was extremely important that we talk about. Gail, thank you so much for your super sticker. I so appreciate your support of my channel. Thank you so much. Hey, Boston, how are you? Good to see you. Ritual was operationally defined as crime scene acts by the offender that were unnecessary for the perpetration of the homicide. Involved activity that exceeded that which could cause death and occurred with at least 2 victims. Examples include body posing, foreign object insertions, torture, or overkill that occurred with 2 or more victims in a series. Those offender activities that were considered MO, for example, actions engaged in to perpetrate the offense, complete the crime, abduct the victim, or elude detection, were excluded, except in those areas in which there was an overlap between ritual and MO, such as fire setting, body dismemberment, and binding. Signature. Signature was operationally defined as a ritualistic act that was distinct or unique behavior, not seen at any other crime scene in our sample. For example, eye enucleation, a ritualistic act that was a unique or distinctive way to carry out a familiar act. For example, posing victims, but with legs spread and propped up on pillows, or a combination of acts that, when taken together, were distinctive and unique. For example, inserting vegetables into victims and photographing them. Accordingly, signature can be considered a subset of ritual. Absolute independent agreement by the authors was necessary for classification of both ritual and signature. So they are not one and the same. They are 2 separate things. Do serial sexual homicide perpetrators engage in ritualistic behavior? 37 or 97.4% of the 38 offenders engaged in ritualistic behavior with at least 2 victims in their homicide series. Of the 162 homicides studied, 147 or 90.7% involved ritualistic acts. Of the 37 offenders who engaged in some type of ritualistic behavior, 33 or 89.2% did so with all their victims. Of the 4 offenders who did not engage in ritualistic behavior at every crime scene, 1 engaged in ritualistic behavior with 29% of his victims, 1 with 40%, 1 with 60%, and 1 with 80%. All 37 offenders who engaged in ritualistic behavior displayed at least one of the behaviors listed. Hold on one second, guys. And those are penis penetration, binding, overkill, beating, posing, mutilation, trophies and souvenirs, photographs and documentation, dismemberment, foreign object insertion, torture, biting, gagging, and necrophilia. Sorry, I just lost my place. Hang on one second, guys. So basically, what we're finding out is that serial sexual murderers, sadistic murderers, do perform rituals and they do have signatures over 90% of the time. And that's what this study found out in these particular offenders. And one of the things that I wanted to make clear was the difference between signature and the difference between a ritual. Now, we're going to talk about ritual killings. These are different than what we were just talking about. Rituals is what I was talking about, was things that the offender does at a crime scene with the victims. Ritual killings are very relatively unusual, but they sometimes bear some of the hallmarks of serial killers or serial killings, such as mutilation of the corpse or some kind of special positioning. Many ritual murders involve the idea of human sacrifice, usually for religious reasons. In the United States, ritual murder is below 1% of all murders. It is just really rare, you guys. Okay? The term religion is used here, however, quite loosely, because it can include belief systems such as Satanism and vampirism. There may also be cultural, psychological, and psychosexual elements to a ritual murder. The hallmark of a ritual killing is evidence of acts not necessary to bring about death. So the hallmark of a ritual killing is evidence of acts not necessary to bring about death. For example, bite marks, excessive violence, and sexual assault may be found in connection with a ritual killing. Human sacrifice is a feature of some, but not all, occult belief systems. The word occult means hidden, and by its very nature, this kind of ritual killing can be hard to investigate. Violence motivated by religion may not be a crime in the eyes of the perpetrator, but it is treated no differently from any other murder in the eyes of the law. Research into motivation for ritual killings has shown that the practice is thought to lead to transformation, deification, and healing. Many people also believe that satanic human sacrifice is done as a way of drawing down or drawing out dark forces. Investigators may assume that those involved in human sacrifice are simply mentally disturbed and hiding behind a belief system that seems to justify their actions. Yet, understanding the beliefs that led to the crime, however distorted they appear, may actually be helpful in solving it and aid in the prevention of future occurrences. Many ritual killings have involved teenage perpetrators drawn into satanic cults. In 1997, a 16-year-old Luke Woodham of Pearl, Mississippi, killed his mother and then went to school with a rifle, killing 2 classmates and wounding 7 more. Woodham had been instructed by his peers in a satanic group that murder was a way of achieving their purposes. The jury rejected an insanity defense, and he was sentenced to a life term for each murder. In another case, 3 teenage girls in Italy murdered a nun, having formed their own satanic group. There have been other murders in both Europe and the United States involving young people who have been in Satanist groups. Oh, Gail, thank you so much, you guys. Gail just gifted 1 membership behind the crime door. Make sure to check your stockings, you guys, as Sleuth would say. Thank you, Gail, so much. In vampirism, there is a belief that drinking blood and practicing cannibalism can help the individual to achieve power and immortality. There have been a number of ritual homicides committed in the vampire tradition, some of them involving teenagers. For instance, 17-year-old Michael Hardman broke into the home of 90-year-old Mabel Leishon in Anglesey, Wales. After killing her by stabbing, he arranged her body with the legs propped on a stool and placed 2 candlesticks on her body and a candle on the mantelpiece. He then removed her heart and drained blood from her leg to drink in a vampire ritual, thinking these actions would render him immortal. When police searched his bedroom, they discovered a large amount of vampire-related books and internet material. Hardman, known as the Vampire Boy Killer, was sentenced to a minimum of 12 years in jail in 2002. The above cases of ritual killing involve young people who appeared to be dabbing in the occult rather than being committed to it. Often they acted alone or in a very small group. There are others who are committed to a belief system or pretend to be for the purposes of committing the crime. It can be difficult to distinguish between the two motives. For example, Richard Trenton Chase, the so-called vampire of Sacramento, murdered a woman and drank her blood in 1978. Psychological profilers noted that the disorder at the scene and concluded the murderer was white, thin, undernourished, and in his mid-20s. As a disorganized type, he'd be unemployed and live alone. They also guessed he would kill again, which he did. Trenton had a history of mental illness and admitted the crimes, but did not see he had done wrong. He told his interrogators that his own blood was turning to sand, so he had to become a vampire. Another case of a killer incorporating some ritual elements into his crime was the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, who terrorized Los Angeles between 1984 and 1985 with a rampage of rape and murder. He would try to make victims declare a love of Satan. At his conviction for 13 murders in 1989, he raised a hand with a pentagram design on it and shouted, "Hail Satan." It is widely believed that killers like Ramirez use belief systems like Satanism as a cover or justification for their crimes. Whether or not they are also mentally deranged is debatable. Hey, Grizz, thank you so much for your super sticker. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for all you do for my channel. I appreciate you. All right, Dave, make sure that you take it easy, okay? Be safe out there. Even more difficult for forensic psychiatrists are those cases where a murder has been committed by a true believer who considers murder to be a sacred act of sacrifice. Such deaths tend to occur outdoors in a designated sacred area on a significant date. Generally, such acts are blood rituals involving a knife. Depending on the belief system involved, the killing may involve a rapid slitting of the throat or be slower and more torturous. The blood may be drained from the corpse, which will be an unusual finding at autopsy. Mutilation post-mortem, along with sexual abuse, carving of symbols into their flesh, and dismemberment are not uncommon in such killings. A recent case of murder committed by apparent true believers involved the discovery of the mutilated torso of a young boy found floating in London's River Thames in 2002. The body was found close to 7 half-burned candles. An autopsy showed hallmarks of ritual killing, and the body had been dismembered in a manner consistent with a human sacrifice. There was a name on the sheet in which the candles had been wrapped, and African experts suggested the signs were consistent with a ritual homicide of the kind sometimes carried out in Nigeria to bring good luck to the perpetrators. It may be that the boy was sacrificed to an ancestor god of the Yoruba people, Nigeria's second largest ethnic group. Orange shorts, orange being the color associated with the god, were placed on the body. Genetic testing, including mitochondrial DNA analysis, suggested that the boy came from West Africa, probably Nigeria, or a nearby country such as Togo or Benin. The boy was circumcised, which commonly occurs after birth in West Africa, but later on as a passage to adulthood in Southern Africa. Analysis of stomach contents and bone chemistry further revealed that the boy could not have been brought up in London. Forensic examination of the cuts where the head and limbs had been severed from the body suggested the expert use of very sharp knives. The flesh had been cut down to the bone, which were then slashed with a single blow from a weapon like a butcher's meat cleaver. The body was then held while the blood was drained from it. Investigators believe that those involved in this case included a magician or priest who would have carried out this ritual. The limbs may have been kept as magic trophies. The orange shorts have been traced to Germany, suggesting the boy was brought to Britain by a common route used in human trafficking. It is a complex case, and so far a so-called muti, the African Zulu word for medicine killing, in which body parts are taken for use in traditional medicines, has been ruled out. The reason is that the boy's genitals were left intact. In a muti killing, the genitals are always removed because they are believed to be a powerful medicine. Forensic investigators assume that the killers were more interested in the boy's blood. A number of Nigerians were arrested in 2003 in connection with this murder. It appears the boy may have been kidnapped and brought to Britain purely for the purpose of carrying out this ritual murder. In terms of conventional psychological profiling, the ritualistic aspects of a killing are sometimes rather similar to the signature of a serial killer. So far, the theory of psychological profiling has not been developed to distinguish the serial killer from the ritual killer. To do this, various cultural and religious aspects would have to be added to current psychological theory. Those who indulge in religious violence know it to be illegal, but do not believe it to be wrong. Many killers who are mentally ill do not understand they have done wrong and may or may not believe their acts are illegal. Understanding the difference between these two groups is clearly challenging for the forensic psychiatrist, but is worthwhile in terms of appreciating the context of certain brutal murders. So, that kind of gives us an eye-opening look at ritualistic killings and how rare they are, and that they're most often brutal. There's all kinds of things that happen at the time of these killings, especially for ones that are religious in nature. And I just have a feeling that this crime scene doesn't speak to that. And that's just my opinion. I don't think it even comes close. I don't even think it goes far enough to come close. So Abby and Libby went for a walk or a hike out on the Monon High Bridge Trail on February 13th, 2017. We all know that. Those of us who've been following this case know the timeline well. There's been many documents released since the arrest of Richard Allen that have revealed evidence in this case. It has not revealed all of the evidence in this case, however. There is plenty of evidence that we do not know about. Guaranteed. No prosecutor is going to put all of their eggs in one arrest warrant. They're just not going to do that in a probable cause document. They're not. They don't want all of it out there. They want to save some of it for court. So there is definitely stuff we don't know. Richard Allen has been on the radar or in this case since the very beginning, since within a day or two of the actual murders. he himself admitted to coming forward to Dan Doolin and speaking to him as a witness of someone stating that they were there that day, that they were out on the trail. And he told him, I was there. He told him that he saw 3 teenage girls and that he went out on the bridge to watch the fish, and that while he was walking to the bridge, he was watching his phone, and a stock ticker on his phone following the stock market. We know from the documents that have been released that we've gotten some details of what investigators discovered at Abby and Libby's crime scene. We also know that they have a confession from Richard Allen that took place on April 3rd, 2023, when Richard Allen placed a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. And during that phone call, he confessed numerous times to the killings of Abby and Libby. That call came from the Westville Correctional Facility where Richard Allen is being held as he awaits trial. And according to the court records, on that April 3rd phone call, he admitted several times that he killed Abby and Libby, and investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirmed that Richard M. Allen admitted that he committed these murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Court records also show that Kathy Allen, his wife, abruptly ended their phone call. What is surprising to me is the very next day, on April the 4th, his attorneys visited him in jail. Is that a coincidence, or was that because Kathy Allen called them to let them know what she had heard in the phone call? I'm going to go with the latter. Not only did they visit him, but they quickly stated that he appeared to be suffering from various psychotic symptoms, which they described as schizophrenic and delusional, which they have no ability to describe as. They are not professionals in this field. They would not know whether or not he was displaying schizophrenic or delusional symptoms. They also stated that he was suffering memory loss. How coincidental is that? You have to look at things objectively, and you have to look at where the evidence takes you and how the evidence falls. And to me, it's suspect that his attorneys appear the day after this phone call, and all of a sudden, Richard Allen is psychotic or acting psychotic, schizophrenic, delusional. I mean, these are some serious mental health issues, okay? To me, and what I see is the defense scrambling to make a narrative as to why Richard Allen would have confessed to these crimes to his wife. And it had nothing to do with Odinism. At this point in time, it had to do with schizophrenia and being delusional. It would later change, however, as we get closer to summer. in the filings of that 118-page document drop that we got, that let us know about some of this, at one point, the warden of the facility told investigators that Richard Allen had been wetting down paperwork he had gotten from his attorneys and was eating it. And he was also refusing to eat and sleep. You know, when you're getting paperwork that shows the evidence that they have against you, and you're starting to see all of your discovery, it makes sense to me that this man would freak out and start behaving in this manner, or it's all an act and he's doing it to try to pretend as if he's got mental illness. And then again, he could be reacting to what the realization of what he has done. And, you know, you go back to 2019 and the presser where Doug Carter speaks directly to the killer and says, "What will your family and friends think when they find out that you have murdered 2 little girls?" Was he speaking to Richard Allen that day? Richard Allen's attorneys filed motions to suppress certain evidence in this case, including his mental health records, and any interviews that he had done while in jail and records that were related to his work. Why would they suppress or try to suppress his mental health records? The only reason that they would want to suppress them is if the mental health records do not mesh with their narrative of mental illness. In my opinion, that's the gist of this. Because if the mental health records show that he's having psychotic breaks and he's having these delusions and he's schizophrenic and he's doing all these things, if it's showing that, as far as I'm concerned, the defense wouldn't care if the state had that information, because that's just fire or fuel for their fire and their narrative of his mental status. The newly released documents in that 118-page document dump also included a note that investigators believed both a gun and a knife were involved in the murders of these 2 girls, and that clothing items, including underwear and socks, were missing from the crime scene. So underwear and socks were taken as trophies or mementos. Investigators had previously released this audio recording of a person saying "down the hill." We've all seen it. We've heard it 1,000 times, if not more, over the last nearly 7 years. And we know that Libby was a hero for providing this to us. Imagine where we would be without it. And we now know that the records have stated that law enforcement later connected Richard Allen to this crime scene by various means, including in 2017 when he told the conservation officer, Dan Doolin, that he had been on the trail the same day that the girls went missing. Investigators later would match an unspent round found near the girls' bodies, in between their bodies, actually, according to court records. When Richard Allen was asked why this unspent round that matched his Sig Sauer weapon would be found between Abby and Libby, he could not explain it, because he had also told officers that and investigators that he never loaned out this weapon, and this weapon was never not under his control. Richard Allen's attorneys have challenged this evidence, and rightfully so. You would expect them to do so. You would expect them to do nothing less. For them to be able to give him a good defense, I would not expect them to do less than that. Allen's attorneys are challenging the ballistics. They're trying to suppress the ballistic testing on the Sig Sauer firearm that belongs to Richard Allen. They are trying to get the evidence from the search warrant of his home thrown out. And the Sig Sauer is part of that search warrant. And that is not the only thing I think that they found there. And that's problematic. And, you know, despite the fact that we've had the release of so many documents over the last 7 months in this case, a lot of the documents remain sealed. There's several of them that are still sealed, including some records that detail names of the juvenile witnesses and transport orders that remain sealed for security purposes. I think it's exactly important to know and to point out. It would be wrong to release transport orders so that people would know when and how he was being transported to and from Westville Correctional Facility. Richard Allen's trial has been delayed because of everything that has been going on with the defense. And we were supposed to be set for trial for January of 2024, just this next month, a month away. I never thought that that trial would take place then. And it's scheduled for October of this year, of this next year. I doubt very seriously it'll take place then. I will be very surprised. And many of my partners in crime on YouTube, who I respect, believe that he may plead out and we will never go to trial in this case. So that's worth mentioning. Richard Allen walked free for more than 5 years until key evidence led to his arrest. That single .40 caliber bullet that was discovered near the bodies of Libby and Abby the day that they were found, that bullet was discovered. It was not discovered weeks later or days later. It was discovered that day. Is the smoking gun that led police to finally charge someone with this crime. Five years. He was on the radar since a couple of days after the murders. His name was out there. For those of us that have followed the case religiously, there was a Richard mentioned on I think it's 4chan, sorry, 4chan, a year and a half ago or so. A year and a half before he was arrested. So 2.5 years ago. The criminal affidavit, which was partially redacted and released in November, has revealed for the first time that this local man, who investigators had been telling us for well over 3 years that they believed that this was a local person living right underneath their noses, was finally tied to these murders through ballistics on a bullet that was found at the bloody crime scene. Now, in a dramatic twist, Richard Allen has claimed not only that he is innocent, but the victims actually died at the hands of a pagan white nationalist cult. And it's so outlandish. And I think about it and I think about it and I'm just like, I don't know that you could call a group of 4 people or 5 people a cult, but I guess maybe. I don't know how they define cult, as if you have to have a certain number of members, but be that as it may, if these particular individuals that they've referenced in their documents are white nationalists and they practice a pagan religion known as Odinism, okay, that does not make them murderers. In fact, most pagan religions have nothing to do with ritualistic killing. It's not something they practice. It's not something that they do. You have to look at it. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. But is it probable? No. I would venture to say no. The document that the defense filed on September 18th was the most sensationalistic piece of diatribe I have witnessed in a very long time in any case. It was so unprofessional. It was completely out of the realm of what it was supposed to be for, a Faxx motion. This thing became crazy, but in it, the defense attorneys claim that these 2 teenage best friends were killed as part of a ritualistic sacrifice by a group of Odinists. It's what they claimed. Not only did they claim it, but they laid out the names of individuals. And this came after their client, 4 months before, had told his family, his mother and his wife, that he committed these crimes. And I'm sorry, but that you just can't pretend like that didn't happen. And I go back to, Who is going to confess to their own mother that they brutally murdered 2 teenage girls? Who does that? Hey, Deb. Long time no see. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Thank you for always being here and supporting this channel. I just adore you. The twists and turns that have been in Abby and Libby's case is unbelievable. It really is. I just can't. I mean, if it wasn't really happening and we weren't really seeing this and seeing all the things going on, I would never ever believe it. In all honesty. Richard Allen, who was on the police's radar back in 2017, but happened to slip through the net because of a supposed clerical error, and I can't wait to hear in court them talk about this, also confessed in jailhouse calls, and we know that he did this multiple times. And when I hear people defending him or saying that he has been used as a patsy in this case, I want them to explain to me why he confessed to his wife and his mother. He wasn't under duress. He was not under duress. They have not proven he was under any duress when it comes to somebody coercing him or some kind of coercion trying to get him to confess. I've spoken to my family members who are detectives about this case. And one of them in particular told me the confession will be his downfall. No matter what else happens with that confession, that is a really strong piece of evidence, especially with whom he confessed. Thanks, Gail. Gail says she looked up cult definition and says a small group with beliefs considered strange or sinister, paraphrased. Hey, Mark. How are you, my good friend? So good to see you. I hope you are well. Hope you're staying warm. Oh, Miranda, I feel very sorry for the families of Abby and Libby. I've heard the same, CJK. Obviously, it's rumor. We don't know because nothing's come out yet. Obviously, that's going to come out in court. But I do wonder why we haven't seen his son-in-law and daughter-in-law in court supporting him this past year. And I do think that that's something that's not being talked about by the people who are defending him either. Or the ones who think it's conspiracy theory. You know, a conspiracy. Hey, Cecil Hotel, how are you? Good to see you. Libby posted a photo of her best friend Abby while walking along that bridge that day. This was the last known photo of Abby before she was killed. It gives us a really good timeline for where the girls were as to what happened. They would later be reported missing by their family when they failed to show up at the pickup point where Libby's father, Derek, was supposed to get them. And the next day was Valentine's Day, you guys. Valentine's Day 2017. And no one talks about this much. No one talks about the fact that this was Valentine's Day. To me, that's huge. I don't think it's a coincidence. And their bodies would be discovered in the woods on Ron Logan's property about a half a mile off the trail. So we have an unspent .40 caliber bullet that was found between the bodies. And it was in the probable cause affidavit released in the case. Law enforcement has never revealed the cause of death for the girls, saying only that they lost a lot of blood after being attacked with an unspecified weapon and were not killed in the same location where their bodies were discovered, or that they were killed in the same location where their bodies were discovered. Sorry. Thank you so much, Jamie. I think there's a lot of gaslighting going on, for sure. I tend to agree with you on that. We just have to stay focused and remember that we know what the evidence is, and that they didn't just on a whim go out there and pick some guy out of a hat to pin this on. Again, if they were going to do that, they would have chosen other people to pin it on where it would have been much easier to do. And one of them being Ron Logan. Especially the fact that he's no longer with us on this earth. It would have been quite easy to do for them to do that. There's a lot of that out there. I have heard that that he confessed to them or made some sort of eerie statement to them regarding it, and that was something. I mean, we just don't know. We really just don't know. And I think because they aren't there and they're not present, that lack of presence makes us think all kinds of things. And until we know for sure, I could, if they moved out of state, I can totally and absolutely see why they would do that, to get away from all of the press and the social media and everything that's around this. Exactly, Jamie. The FBI strongly suggested to the task force that it was Ron Logan in the very early weeks after this case broke. That's what they were thinking. And it would have been so much easier for them to do that. That's why I don't believe that this is anybody trying to railroad anyone. On October 13th, investigators executed the search warrant at the home on North Whiteman Drive that Mr. Allen shared with his wife, Kathy. There have been a lot of YouTubers out there making a lot of statements about the fact that Dan Doolin wrote down the wrong name and wrote down Richard Whiteman instead of Richard Allen. Could that be the reason why Richard Allen was not, his tip was missed or not discovered sooner? And that, did he do that on purpose or whatever? Come on. How many of us that do a job where we have to write things down, haven't written things down wrong or made mistakes like that. It's so easy to do. And for people to be so critical, it's one of the things that I've had such a problem with about this case is how critical everyone is of any mistake at all that's made by law enforcement. Like they're supposed to be perfect and they're not supposed to ever make a mistake. The Murder Sheet did a really good job of throwing the FBI under the bus when they said that, that the tape that was supposedly gathered from this marathon station disappeared. I don't even know that that's true at this point. I question the validity to any of that. Honestly, I still wonder about all of that because that directly puts Kagan Klein in Delphi that day. So I don't know. I just think it's all a bunch of crazy. Let's try to build ourselves a podcast. What's the best way to do it? This is the best way to do it. The affidavit showed that they found knives, many knives. We have pictures. I have pictures of Richard Allen at home outside of his house with knives. He liked knives. That's, okay. I mean, there's a lot of guys who like knives. That doesn't make him a murderer, but they found a lot. They found a lot of firearms and they found the Sig Sauer, the Model P226 pistol. And that pistol is a big deal. And his defense team knows it. And that is why they are going after that search warrant, because they know how important that evidence is and that it's critical for them to get it thrown out or he's going down. The Indiana State Police Laboratory is the ones who analyzed the forensics in this case, and they analyzed the ballistics and the gun. And they determined that that unspent round found 2 feet from one of the victim's bodies, 24 inches from one of the victim's bodies had been cycled through Mr. Allen's gun. And that's according to that court document. Richard Allen confirmed in his own words to investigators that he owned the gun since 2001. His wife, Kathy, told investigators that her husband was the only person with access to that weapon. No one else had access. He also told them that, but she corroborated that story. And like I said before, when he was asked, how would the bullet get by the victims and only 2 feet from their bodies, especially a bullet that had not yet been fired? When these 2 teenage girls had been brutally murdered, he had no explanation for that. And a lot of times, silence and no explanation is just as good as admitting guilt. Because what are you going to say? How do you defend that? For him to say that that was there, that puts him there. And I have said for the last 7 years, I said it on Reddit, I've said it here, you have to be able to put your person of interest at the scene, not on the bridge, but at the scene with the bodies. This bullet does that for Richard Allen. Not only does everything else make him be bridge guy that we know, but the evidence points directly to him being there at the crime scene where the girls' lives ended. The affidavit also revealed to us that one of the victims can be heard on the video that Libby took saying gun before she died. Investigators had previously revealed that whoever Bridge Guy was and whoever had attacked Libby and Abby had told them to go down the hill in that footage that we saw and heard. We saw this mystery figure for almost 6 years captured in Libby's video. And he, notoriously became known as Bridge Guy after the Snapchat video was taken on Libby's phone during that hike that day. In that clip, this man was wearing blue jeans, a blue jacket, and a hoodie, and he can be seen approaching the girls. You can distinguish a male voice, and he can be heard saying the words, "Guys, down the hill." Police have believed that the recording was made just prior to the murders taking place. And they praised the girl's awareness and Libby's foresight for recording the clip and what bravery it took for her to do that day. Investigators told us all these years that the suspect was a white male between the ages of 16 and 40 years of age, between 5'6" and 5'10", and weighing between 180 and 200 pounds. The affidavit contains an eyewitness account from 3 girls under 17 years of age who they say they encountered this man on the Monon High Bridge who seemed to be hiding his face and glared at them when they said hello. On the bridge trail, sorry, not on the bridge. One of the 3 juveniles put the man's height no taller than 5'10". And they did give varying accounts of what he was wearing, but all said he had on jeans and a jacket, which is pretty doggone spot on, in my opinion. Because if you have eyewitnesses that absolutely say they saw the exact same things, to me, that would be very suspect. There was a female witness whose name has been redacted, but I know people are using it out there, which upsets me. Told investigators she also saw a man matching the description of Bridge Guy that was captured on Libby's phone on the Monon High Bridge, on the actual bridge. She also recounted seeing Libby and Abby walking towards the bridge around 1:49 p.m., which coincides with the time that Kelsey dropped the girls off. So here we have another eyewitness. Another witness told police that they saw a man wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans who was muddy and bloody. Closed circuit television footage from the Hoosier Heartland Harvest Store placed that witness driving away from the area around 3:57 p.m. Both of these witnesses told investigators they didn't come across any other males on the trails that day. If there were other people out there, why were they not seen? In a police interview early on in the investigation, Richard Allen said he was on the trail from 1:30 to 3:30. And that's what he told Dan Doolin back in 2017. And he said he had walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge and that he noticed the three individuals, but he didn't interact with them as he was distracted by a stock ticker on his phone. A vehicle resembling his 2016 Ford Focus that's owned by Mr. Allen was seen on this closed-circuit television footage from the Hoosier Heartland Harvest Store. And one witness said that it was parked behind an old Child Protective Services building in a very odd location. And it was why they noticed it in the first place. It was parked as if the driver had been trying to conceal its plates. And that was in the affidavit. During a separate interview on October 13th of this year with investigators, Mr. Allen told police he'd gone to the bridge to watch the fish. He didn't talk about a stock ticker, I don't believe. He talked about watching the fish. He said he was wearing blue jeans with a blue or black Carhartt jacket and may have worn a head covering. He admitted seeing the three juvenile girls, but said he didn't encounter anyone else. That means that the other two witnesses would be lying, correct? If he didn't see them and they saw him. According to this affidavit, the detective who worked on the case since 2017 believed that the combination of Libby's video, the eyewitness accounts, the CCTV footage that backs up their account showed that Mr. Allen was, in fact, bridge guy. And furthermore, that the victims were forced down the hill by Richard Allen and led to the location where they were subsequently murdered. The affidavit raised questions as it revealed that Mr. Allen spoke with investigators at least twice, including in 2017, confirming that he was on the police radar at the time of these murders. But in the 2017 interview, he confessed to being on the bridge on the afternoon of February 13th, placing him on the scene the same day and time. Not just the same day, you guys, but the same day and time that these victims went on that fateful walk, and he was on that bridge at the time the girls walked to the bridge. And at the time, he denied any involvement in the murders. He insisted he had never seen those two girls that day. Because if he had told the investigators that he saw the girls, that would even make him look even more guilty. In another interview in October of 2022, the October 13th interview, he had no explanation as to how the bullet ended up between the bodies of the two teenage victims. He stated matter-of-factly that he had not been on the property where the unspent round was found. He did not know Ron Logan, and he would have no explanation as to why a round cycled through his own firearm that no one else had access to would be at that location. We all know that Ron Logan was greatly involved and looked at as a possible potential person of interest by the FBI early on in this investigation. But I also believe that we pretty much can tell that they ruled him out. He died in 2020 from COVID. So, hang on, guys. Um, so that is basically, in a nutshell, everything I laid out is what led investigators to charging him. And I think that, they did it rather quickly after they did the interview, they did the search warrant, they felt they had, probable cause to get the search warrant. They find the Sig Sauer P226. They do the ballistics examination on it. We have a match, and they make their arrest. What else they found in the house and on his property, we don't know yet. There are some of us that do know some of the things that were found, simply because you can go back and look at the document that they have to file with the court after they execute a search warrant. Law enforcement can't just go search property and take whatever they want. They have to make sure that what they're taking is falling in the circumference of the language within the search warrant. I think that we all were blown away when we got the notification in June at the hearing that Richard Allen had confessed to these crimes. If we didn't have his confession, to me, that was just the nail in the coffin, for me, because I don't see somebody I see somebody who thinks or wants to profess their innocence. I see them pushing to go to trial right away. I see them pushing, wanting to shout to the rooftops their innocence. And I certainly don't see them doing the things that he's done by admitting to this, to his wife, to his mother. The eating of Discovery, just, to me, that is just another play and ploy by him and his defense team, which, kudos to the defense, you guys. I mean, we can say all the bad things we want to about his defense team, but they were doing what they were supposed to do, no matter how ridiculous it all sounds to us, to people who have some semblance of common sense. I mean, I've always said, and I will continue to say it, common sense isn't common anymore. 9 times out of 10 in these cases, it's Occam razor. It's the simplest explanation. It's not going to be some convoluted conspiracy of, Tony Liggett was trying to get elected, and so they needed a patsy, and they needed to do this, and they needed to do that, and I'm just like, I just don't get it. I don't know why you're confused, Kelly. Mike Patty was at work. I don't know what the confusion would be about Mike Patty. Most of the men in that area of Indiana dress the way Richard Allen was dressed. It's one reason why he was dressed that way. It's because that's the way they dress. All you have to do is go there and or be there, or be from the Midwest, and you can see that. The Carhartt jackets are huge. I'm in Illinois. I'm 2.5 hours away, about three at the most, and Carhartt's everywhere. It's what country folk wear. It's just that simple. They last a long time. They're durable, and that's what they wear. And the whole evidence leak that happened in this case, everybody can say what they want to say about this, but the defense had a strategy. Defending someone for capital murder, when you're looking at the death penalty, possible death penalty case, because that's not been determined yet, you guys. We haven't heard whether or not they will seek the death penalty in this case. We know that they were requiring death penalty qualified attorneys in this case. But the sensitive crime scene photo evidence that was released and leaked by Richard Allen's defense team that could cause everything to go up in smoke when it comes to a trial in 2024. That was all a highly organized and orchestrated event in my mind. And the investigation is still continuing as far as I'm aware. And Mark was supposed to, I'm sorry, Mark, I apologize. Mitchell Westerman was supposed to be in court tomorrow, and his hearing has been canceled. Thank you, Frank Meister, for sending me that today, by the way. And I just find all of that like I said, there's just so many points in this, you know what I mean? What's the help me out here, you guys? What is the thing about there's no coincidences in murder? There's so many things in this case that are coincidental or crazy or I mean, it's just, I knew last spring, I told True Crime Maria multiple times in multiple discussions that when they finally made an arrest in this case, it was going to be ugly because there was going to be a faction of people that would not accept it, because I saw so many people that were invested, like they had a dog in this fight with their POI. They were so invested in their narrative of who had done this crime, they wouldn't accept it if it wasn't that person. She is doing well, CJK. She's living her best life. I talk to her very often, and she is staying off of YouTube, and I don't blame her. And she's just living her best life. So I'll let her know that you asked about her. I love her to death. But we talked about it. We just talked about it so much. It's like anybody out there who wants to try and throw the family members under the bus, That ship has sailed. And it sailed 7 years ago when the FBI vetted all of them. And I just don't understand it. It's true, Deb, and I don't get, it's like these narratives that these people want to profess and claim as their own and state that they're factual. I know that a lot of people that are new to the case and have only maybe been watching the case for a year or so, or a year and a half or two, maybe at most, have no idea. So it's easy to get those people to gaslight them, I guess. I don't know. However, whatever way to say it. But I was watching a documentary, and I was also watching the investigators the other night. What is it? What's that channel? You guys know what I'm thinking of. I love his channel. They were going over the case of the little girl in Tennessee or Kentucky. God, why is her name is completely Summer Wells, the Summer Wells case. And they were going over that case. And I mean, come on. That case points to family far more than the Delphi case does. But yeah. I know the frustration, you guys, because even though I'm not putting content out 3 times a week anymore, I'm still when I diamond paint or when I'm doing stuff like that, I usually have YouTube on, and I'm sitting here and I watch some of it and I listen to some of it, and most of it I have to turn off because I just can't. I'm like Gail when she, I can't stomach it. Cecil, I think, said it too. And I just can't deal with it. It gets my blood pressure up. It makes me anxious and upset. And I hate the fact that Becky has to go through this and listen to these people that could care less about her family, and her granddaughter. Because to me, that's where this is at. And it's always been that way for me. This is about Abby and Libby, and this is about justice for them. And that's all it's about. It's not about Kristen behind the crime door. It's not about Kristen behind the crime door being right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I will admit it. I have no problem with that. I don't have to be right. I want justice for these 2 girls. I want the person who did this brutal crime to pay. To pay the only way we can make them pay in our society. This person has walked free for nearly 7 years. And this family has suffered every holiday, every monumental moment that these little girls should have been experiencing has gone on without them, and it will continue for the rest of their lives as they lay breathing. They will continue to miss out on and not have, and it is gut-wrenching, you guys. It's gut-wrenching to not have your child with you anymore, and to not see them, to not be able to hug them, to not be able to kiss them, to tell them how much you love them, to watch them grow up and become wonderful adults. These two girls were on paths to be great, great kids. They were on paths to be something. They each had um, you know, sights ahead of what they wanted to do with their lives at such a young and tender age. And they will never be forgotten. They have touched the hearts of so many of us. And, when I was in Delphi in October for the memorial walk, and I went to the ball field that they built in their memory. What an absolute amazing, amazing and wonderful thing that community did to remember the girls forever. They took a field that was just an empty space and was not being utilized. They took that field and they made something beautiful where people and families can congregate and come enjoy the things the girls loved, softball and music, because those were the things that Abby and Libby loved. They were very musical. They were so into sports. And Abby was so excited to be able to go out for softball. She was so looking forward to that. And it was robbed from her. And it's just, these people that sit down and have nothing better to do but to have some sort of narrative that is absolutely gut-wrenchingly painful to the family. They need to get a check. They need to check themselves at the door, because there's something seriously wrong with them, in my opinions. Seriously wrong with them. We all know what kind of world we live in. I mean, we see it every day, guys, all of us, right? All of us. How can you not? You turn on your news and you see the hate and the just unimaginable pain and suffering that's going on in our world. Exactly, Gail. Exactly. I mean, for me, it can be smells, it can be uh, seeing just the smallest of things. Seeing an ad on television can remind me or bring things back for me. Um, Music is huge for me. I can hear a song and it just crushes me. Um, and I can be driving and all of a sudden I I will be just sobbing and the tears will just flow. And I'm kind of like, what the heck's going on? And then I realize what's playing on the radio. And it reminds me of him, of my son. Yes, Cecil, she did. And she's cancer free, by the way. So praise God for that. At least they got a win there, right? But they've been through so much. We can't fathom the pain that the families have been through. We cannot fathom what they've been through. And if I can do anything in my power by just a little minute bit of sending them hope and love. I've always said that I never wanted to take away the family's hope that the case would be solved, because without hope, they have nothing. And, I mean, oh, CJK, I miss my mom so much this year. I mean, she passed away in September of 2017, and my father passed away in October of 2017, and I miss them both greatly. I went into a horrific spiral of depression after their deaths. Pretty much became a hermit, and as you guys saw, I kind of blew up like a balloon, and literally, and so I had to get back on track. Had to get back on track because I know that my mom and my dad would want me to be healthy and, you know, and to be doing all the things to take care of myself. But it's not easy, you guys. And this time of year is hard on all of us who've lost loved ones. And, you know, when you think about Galen, and you think about her and her 4 babies that she lost in the Florida fire, and how does she make it through? You know, my heart breaks for her every time I think about her, because I know how broken my heart is. And yes, I've forged a path forward and I've found a way through it. Does that mean that it's perfect? No, because it can be the slightest of things that cause everything to come rushing back. There's times with this case where things will happen or things will be said, and it reminds me of what I've went through. And you can't replace people. And once they're gone, there's that emptiness. And that emptiness will always be there where they were supposed to be. And, you know, I just, I hope that we all can continue to hold the families in close to our hearts, and know that this isn't easy for them, and we need to continue to do what we can to not add to their pain, whatever that is that we can do. And this narrative that's out there right now is ridiculous. And I don't understand it, honestly. I really don't. I just don't. This whole mindset in this country where everybody is against the law, against law enforcement, all of a sudden thinking that all law enforcement is bad and all law enforcement's corrupt. That's not true. Not all of them. For Pete's sake, you know, there's bad apples in every profession. There's bad actors in every walk of life, but that doesn't mean that all human beings are bad. And, you know, we have to get back to trust. At some point, we have to trust. If you lose trust, what do you have left? I mean, I just don't get it. I really, really don't. But that's what I had for you guys tonight. I wanted to go over the and talk, like I said, and talk about the evidence. I think the evidence is strong in this case. I think that they're going to have a really hard time getting past it. I don't see them getting the search warrant thrown out. I just don't. And that's kind of how I feel about it. It's going to be interesting, like I said last week to you guys, to see whether or not the Supreme Court actually has a ruling in the case, or whether their ruling is that they send it back to the appellate court, and to have the appellate court deal with it, or send it back to the trial court and let Judge Gull handle it as she sees fit. Those are the 3 things that we will see. We will either see the Supreme Court rule, we will see the Supreme Court not rule and basically say, we're not dealing with this. We're going to send it back to the appellate court, or we're going to send it back to the trial court. Hey, Sean, how are you? Good to see you. They do have good food. Those salads were phenomenal that they had. And I felt bad that I left my majority of my salad sitting on the table that night. I walked right out without it. I was tired though. So, oh, Gail, my heart goes out to you, my dear. 3 times is no fun. No fun at all. And I'm glad that you are well. So glad that you are well. I appreciate all of you guys who come and listen and who support the channel. It means a lot to me. I wouldn't be here without you guys. I know that people care. I know that you guys all have a deep care about the case. Oh, cool. Awesome. Right? I guess it's a good thing that you did go back to work. I have to admit, you guys, I am officially retired, and I'm official this month. So yeah, I'm official, and it feels kind of good. It feels really good to be retired and feel that. I can't tell you. I feel very blessed as well, Gail. I feel extremely blessed that I've gotten my health back, and that I'm doing absolutely phenomenal every single day. I'm able to walk like there's no tomorrow now. I still need to get my meniscus that's torn in my left knee. I still have to have that repaired, which hopefully I'm going to do right after the holidays. And once that's done and I've healed from that, I should be good to go. I think at that point, I'll feel like the bionic woman. Maybe not so bionic, but hopefully. But yeah, I need to get back to Delphi. I want to spend some time with Purdue. I want to spend some time with Deb, and meet up again with Mark and all of the people. And so yeah, it's like there's a lot that I haven't gotten to see or do around Delphi and Flora. And I am sorry that I missed the Flora walk. I really wanted to get there. So basically what I mean by that is that the Supreme Court will do one of 3 things. They will give a ruling on the motions that have been put before them, and they will rule, and they will say either Judge Gull stays on the case, everything is to remain status quo, and they send it back to the trial court to continue the case. They can also rule and say Judge Gull is off the case. We're going to appoint a new special judge. And they could also say that the defense attorneys belong back on the case, and they re-put them back. I do not see that happening, but that is something that could happen. And they could do that as well. Or the Supreme Court could say, because the Supreme Court doesn't always have to rule on cases brought before them. What they can do is they can look at everything and say, you know what, we're not dealing with this. This needs to be dealt with in the appellate court. It's where it should have been sent in the first place, which every attorney and judge that I know and have spoken to has said it should never have gone to the Supreme Court. It should have gone to the appellate court, and it didn't. They tried to circumvent the appellate court by going to the Supreme Court. I look for them to send it back to the appellate court, is what I look for to happen. Or they can say, the heck with all of that. Everything is fine the way it is, and it goes back to the trial court. It's up to Judge Gull how she handles everything. So I'm spending a lot of time, Cecil, working out in the water, and doing a lot of swimming. And it has really helped because it takes the strain off of my joints. So I don't have a lot of pain, and I'm able to really work out for a good hour, hour and a half, which is awesome. I've been doing aqua aerobics and aqua Zumba. And trust me, that is a workout. That will get you your blood pumping. But yeah, that's what the differences are, and how things could play out here. I just hope, like I said, that we do hear something, but I'm not at this point thinking we're going to hear before the end of the year. I just don't look for them to say anything until after. Now, I know they know that this case is being held up, and now that they've said Richard Allen has asked for a speedy trial within 70 days, I don't even know if he's able to do that. I'm still trying to find out that, because things are so different in Indiana, but I think he passed that way back right after he was arrested. So, they're good. They're doing really, really well. I haven't lost any of them. They are, they're just all doing really great. One of them, I think, is out right now. I don't know if you guys can see it. If I show you, it might not show up on camera, but one of them, see, the light is going to be, I don't think you can see him, but he's right up here. Can you see him, guys? He's like a little black dot up there. But that's one of the little enclosures that they're in. They don't need very big spaces because they don't go very far. That's one of the things about jumping spiders is they don't venture far. Once they find a space, they just kind of stay in it. I think I showed you guys before, and this is one of my other enclosures. This is my coffin crib enclosure that I made. And she's down inside of the rose is where she's at tonight. She was out earlier and was eating. So, but yeah, those are a couple of my small ones. I have some bigger enclosures, but all of the babies, all of these spiders came from 3 spiders that showed up on my front door screen. And I took them, caught them in medicine cups, because they won't hurt you or whatever. And then I've just been feeding them. And so, yeah, it's all, I love them. I love them. So every spider species is different, Cecil, but the jumping spider species, they can live for about 3 years, is as long as they live, usually. Some not that long, and others about that long. It just depends on how well they're fed, how good their diet is, and things like that, and their environment and stuff. But yeah, my grandson, my grandson Jackson, he absolutely loves them, and he's named all of them. They all have names, and so yeah, it's a thing. It's become a thing. But yeah, I'm the girl with the spiders. So, and I love the fact I've become that way too. I've become very more understanding. I've really gone out and tried to learn about spiders. They're not bad like people have made them out to be. They eat mosquitoes. They get a lot of the really bad insects that can be harmful to us. And so, yeah, when I find a spider in my house, usually I leave it alone or I try to rehome it and find it some other place to live other than inside my house. It just depends. But yeah. Well, thank you guys. Robin, thank you so much for being here. I am very happy that you're here. We have a really good community here. It's a very safe space. And you don't have to. Oh, CJK, by the way, I don't know. I just have to say this. You know I love you, but I just have to say this because this is huge for me, you guys. My Arizona Wildcats are number one. They're number one, you guys. They're number one in the nation. So I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. Everybody else is lost but them. So, and they're playing Purdue next week in Indianapolis. And I think Mark said he was going. I don't know if you're still in here or not, Mark, but I really want to go. So, and I've been looking at tickets. My grandson, my middle one, the football player, he would like to as well. So yeah, I'm so excited, you guys. But thank you everyone who showed up tonight and everybody who followed along. I know that there was a lot of information in the very beginning and a lot of stuff on the ritual and the signature stuff, but I thought it was really important that we go over that to get a better understanding about this case and you know what signature is versus what it isn't and all of that. Deb's laughing. I love you, Deb. I love you. Thank you for all you do. Make sure you guys are supporting Deb's True Crime Notebook. Make sure you're supporting Frank Meister. I think all you guys already are, but Sleuth Intuition, he's got good content going on as well. And we just need to all kind of stick together. Grismatically Clever, his channel is awesome. And he's got good content out there as well. And we just need to make sure that we keep supporting the Faxx, because the facts are the facts, you guys. The facts don't lie. Okay? I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Have a fabulous weekend. We're getting closer to Christmas. Please be safe out there. I know that traffic's nuts and everybody's trying to get to their places and get shopping done and all of that good stuff. So just be safe. Be kind. Always be kind, and make sure you pay it forward if you can. Good night, everybody, and I will see you next time.